Hey guys, how's it going? Ghostly Rich here today. Today we are going to be building another computer system. Let's go over the hardware. We have a Cooler Master case. Again, it's just a basic case because didn't really care about it being all see-through and all the other fun stuff, even though it does have a big see-through piece of glass right here. I didn't really care about that much. Reasons why. I'm going to be doing water cooling. I'm still going to have enough fans that I can shove them in different places around this case. We have an ROG Strix Z370E gaming. We have a i7 core. We have 32 gigabytes of RAM. We have a GeForce GTX 1080 Ti made by MSI. I lucked out. This is like the last one in the province right now. I walked in and there's a whole story behind how lucky I was to get this. Using my old 750 for now until the day it decides to die. H100, one optical drive just so I can read discs if I really want to. And last but surely not least, we have 3 gigabyte drives. And we have a 500 gigabyte solid state and 128 gigabyte solid state. One's an 850, which is for the 500, and the 840 is the 128. I will do an M.2 later on, just not right now. That's gonna be a little bit later when I just have so much storage as it is right now, and it's already so stinking quick. I wasn't too worried about upgrading to it right now, although it wasn't a nice option. I'll leave it till it gets a little bit older, gets refined, and that way I can buy it then. All right, first things first, I'm gonna pop out the four back, now, because I'm used to my old cases. 1, 2, so I can see the side panel for cable management. And over here, I'm gonna take off all 4 of these. Actually, this one only has 2. No way, that's cool. So 2 here, and then the whole window lifts out of this lip. This case comes with very basic minimal things. Has a couple of fans that go into one ATX right here, or for your power supply. So you've got 3 fans to 1. That is definitely one way of doing it. So we've got that right there. We have quick disconnect drives down here. So these are pretty easy. Just pull them out like so. You squeeze and then remove. Again, just squeeze them like this. When you put your hard drive in, it literally you just squid. You can either put 2 pins in and then flex this out and then put the pins so they line up, and then let it sink in, and then just kind of press it in around it, make sure it sits nice and solid. If you want to, you'll see that there are screw holes on the side. You can put 1 screw into the hard drive if you're worried about that moving. Personally, in this day and age, you don't really have to worry about that, but it's always a good idea. The other thing that you're gonna notice on here is you have these little mounting holes right here. These are for SSDs. You can see, it's so you can put the little SSD on there and put the screws in, and it'll hold the SSD. That's one way of doing it. There's also some other tray on the other side. We'll take a look at that, but I'm pretty sure this right here is another SSD tray, so we might be able to use that to hold some SSDs. This is the back of the case. As you can see, we have wire management locations. I highly suggest you put some cups out so that way you can keep your screws in. And then if this case is so light, this is what I wanted, so perfect. And as you can see, big opening here. We can turn this sideways and you can see a quick disconnect plate right here for your power supply. So you can bolt your power supply in, and then it just slides in right here, and you put in your 2 quick disconnect screws. Let's see if I can get these ones with my fingers. Oh, look at that. They put these in really tight. Open up the little package that comes with your case. Well, it might be a box, it might be a little baggie. You should have a bunch of screws. As you can see, I've got 4 screws. They have almost looks like an 8mm top end with a Phillips. All you're gonna do is line this plate up like so. Make sure your screws are facing up. You don't wanna bolt this in the wrong way. You line this up with the 4 screw holes, tighten them up, and then slip your PSU into your case. Thing to mention, make sure you note the direction of your fan for your PSU. You'll see on the bottom there's that grate. You want your fan to line up with that because there's a filter on the other side. That way it has a exhaust right out of the case, so if it starts getting warm, it doesn't shoot hot air into your case, it just automatically removes it from your case. So this is that front piece right here. It's kind of a cool cover. It's on an angle, so that way when it exhausts heat, it makes sure it comes upward. Looking in your case and you want to remove those fans in the front so you can put your CPU cooler right here, you will notice that most of them are Phillips, but if you do have these quick disconnects, just take your nail or a screwdriver, pop them in. Once you pop them in with your nail, you come out here, you'll see it sticking out, slide it out. I've never seen that before, probably because this is a cheap case, but hey, if you go over here, you can remove all these twist tie wraps. Once you get rid of them, all your fans should come loose. Look at this quality, Jesus. I love it. All right, put our really cool looking red fan right there. Take these two out, put them over here. Now that we've gotten all these old fans out of the way, I'm gonna clean off my table and I'm going to lie this down and it's time to start building. I usually like to start with the motherboard. Now that we've gutted, I've made sure my power supply fits. If you want to, you can make sure your cooler fits. If you're one that's trying to put your cooler up top, like if you have a case with holes up top here, be careful because if you have certain RAM, it will not work. You'll have to put it in the front because it won't bolt in up there. Just a quick food for thought kind of thing. The other cool thing is see how this comes with this little metal plate right here? Just to let you know, for these quick metal plate, because I'm not going to be using that. This thing, you can actually move it. There's holes right here for SSDs. There is holes right here, and there's holes right on the back of here too. Like there's tons of spots for SSDs on here. So see where it says all the A's right here? A. As you can see, it says ATX because that is exactly what motherboard we're going to be using. So in all the ATX spots, motherboard we're using is Republic of Gamer Strix, as you can see here. We're going to open this up. We're going to grab out this. This is going to have some contents in there. Open it up and take them all out. You're going to have your motherboard right here. What we're going to do, I'm not going to do this obviously on camera, is you're going to pull this motherboard out and just, if you want, put the box on the ground and have it on the cellophane. You're going to check the screw ports where it's going to get screwed down and just mimic them onto your board. But like I said, it should be all the spots at the A. And there's a reference guide here, A and M and I. So it'll tell you for if you have a miniature board and all that other fun stuff. You pull your motherboard out, make sure you pull out the bottom and get everything that you need out of the bottom piece there. You'll find more parts under this box flap, that box flap, and of course take your manuals out. Once you do that, put that in here. Most important piece of all, kidding, but still, take this piece. You'll see the direction it should face and just click it into here. But first, of course, take it out of the package. But you'll see that it's on a whole bunch of little bevels. All you're gonna do is when you sink it in, you'll hear it click. Just make sure you put it in the right way and you're fine. Obviously, with the writing facing up. So as I said before, I was right. Anything with an A, just put them in the A and it'll fit your new motherboard. I've got one more to put in here. The reason why I haven't put it in is so I could show you something. So if you pour out all your screws from your case, this one has this really cool tool. It has a Phillips to hex adapter, so that way you can slide them on if you don't have a hex driver and tighten it with a Phillips. That's something new I haven't seen before. I'm sure they're in lots of cases. It's just been a while since I've played around with a lot of new cases. When you're sliding your board in, I still have to bolt mine down, but what you want to do is make sure that the ports work their way around here. If you notice something's going to get caught, don't ram it in. Check the grounding posts. That's those little metal tabs. You'll see them, trust me, when you're putting it in. And you want to make sure those grounding posts touch, but you don't want them to like be trying to push out through here. So just make sure that if you can get the DVI through, usually this is the tough one because the Wi-Fi ones are smaller. It's that damn DVI one that's just nice and tight. Once you get it in, press it in. And once you line it up, put in the, I guess it's 9 screws there. So when you're taking a look and you have your board down, you'll see next thing we're gonna do is our CPU. Look at it, nice and shiny. what you're gonna wanna do is bend this out like so. So it just comes up and out like so. I'm gonna leave that down just like this. You don't want any dust on there. That's why. Just leave it like that. You're gonna have a CPU tool in this box. So next thing you're gonna wanna do, pop out your processor. Boom, you'll see that's here. And you'll see you have a CPU installation tool. Look at how see how it has that little corner marking? You're gonna make, where is it here? You'll notice that one of these corners right there with the arrow. So it sits like this on the board. See how it says Intel? It's gonna sit how it's reading at you. So if you take your install tool, line it up with the arrow, just exactly how it says, right here in the corner. You can see it's got that little arrow right here. And the instructions, like if you're looking at it, it should be like this. We're gonna put the tool on it, pick it up using the tool, and then you're gonna flip this open, take the plastic cover off, and then we're gonna put it on. Whether you use the tool or not, once it's on here, the little arrow is facing right here. And you can read the CPU. You're gonna put this on, and you're just going to use this so it slides in right here. Once it's on, just do that. Compresses on, you're all good, arrow's in. This is the most heart-throbbing part of the whole thing. As long as you are completely lined up, you're all good. Next thing I'm gonna be installing is my cooler. As you can see, we have some more instructions. We've got some fans, put these over here. We've got the radiator. Be careful with this. You don't wanna bend the little fins on it. We'll put this off to the side right here for a second. We've got some mounts, which we're gonna be using. We have thumb screws and posts. I have another post stance right here. Next thing you need is everything in here. You're just gonna have some, just basically grab all the parts, lie it out, and then we're gonna read and see which ones we need to use. Next thing you wanna do is get out these little posts, slip them into the ring like so. Once they're in the ring, slide them to their most inner spot for this particular CPU. So it's like this, and you're gonna just bring it around from behind and line it up on the holes, and then just plunk it in on there. Next thing you're gonna do is get these posts out. Now if you take a look, you're gonna see these little posts, and then you're gonna see this is the wrong post for this CPU build. You'll see how short that is and how it's more aggressive. These are the wrong ones, don't use them. These are the right ones. They're longer than the rest, and those are the ones we're gonna thread in. What I do is take those posts like so, and you just wanna finger tighten them in. Just put them right in there. If you want, you can tighten them up a little bit with a driver, but I'm not going to. I usually just tighten them up when we use these afterwards. These are what are gonna hold the CPU on there. So now we can mount our fan. Like I said, I'm doing mine here. Maybe yours will clear if you have a top mount here, but mine won't. So even if I did, in another 2 cases where I've used this style fan, it hasn't cleared past the memory. So that's why I've always done that. So make sure you check at this point. Take your RAM out if you want and just plunk it in and make sure it's gonna pass past it. Otherwise, if it isn't, then you have to find another location. Next piece that you're gonna need is you're going to need to put this up next to there, and then you can put the screws in from here. So put a screw, a washer, tie it through the second hole, the second slat of holes into here, and just make sure you can line up all these holes so that way it's properly supported. You can either A, bolt the fans on, or B, what I'm gonna do before I put the fans on, I just wanna get this out of the way so it's less moving around while I'm trying to locate and set up my fans. So you're gonna do is pull this plastic cover off, and you're going to line up the Corsair emblem. You'll see what I mean. Don't be afraid to turn this around different directions. It'll be pretty easy. Once you line this up and you slide it on, all you do is you tighten these thumb screws over top of the posts. So I'll show you what it looks like when I'm done. So as you're going around, tighten, tighten, tighten. So like snug it up, snug it up, snug it up, snug it up. and then start going a bit of a star pattern, and it'll make sure it sits the CPU cooler down at the same rate if you want to. That's just what I've always done. After you have this nice and tight down, don't He-man it, just tighten it with a screwdriver. And once it's all tightened up and you know it's nice and good, the next thing we can do is quickly bolt on our fans. Now, it's funny, they're showing you an arrow in the instructions that leaves the case. I'm guessing they just want it to say swing up, but the funny thing about this is it's saying in these instructions, attach the radiator and the fans shown for the best cooling performance. We recommend mounting the fans as an air intake into your PC case. Meaning, they want you to set up your fans. Let's see if we've got the arrows here. See how it's got the arrow right there? Which way to aim? It wants you to be drawing air into your case. So like so. Because that would be an intake fan into your case. And of course, if you want it so it pushes air through the radiator, you would go the other way. So I'm gonna have it so it pulls air in, like they say, because apparently they prefer it as an air intake. Or if you want to, you can have it so it pushes air through the radiator and out through the case. Whichever way you think is gonna work better. The good thing, I think though, if you have it pushing air out, in this instance, is it's gonna push against the plastic and then out. Like it'll push it up and out through the top of the case. And heat rise as well. So since heat rises well, it'll go out that way. Problem is if you pull it into the case, it might pool right here. So that's why they're saying it would probably be better, or actually that still doesn't make sense because an intake would pull air in from the top and then, yeah, I'll leave it up to you. I'd leave it almost as an exhaust fan, but do it whichever way you would prefer. Once you get your 8 screws in here, so that way they're all in, you'll go to the back side. Now I put one fan in just to show you an example. What you're gonna do is you're gonna thumb tighten, don't put them in all the way. See how there's a little bit of a gap on these? Trying to see if I can get you some better lighting here. But yeah, all I did is I thumb screwed them in about 6 threads, left them loose, and I put them all in so they still have a hefty amount. After you get them in, just snug them all down, going and rotating, because if you tighten one side down, you'll notice it'll pull away from the radiator. So make sure that you tighten them down at the, just rotating between the screws so that way it sits nice. Again, I did it just like they said. I have it so it's intaking into the case. When you're doing this, the next thing you're gonna wanna do is plug in the CPU fan. See where my cable is going up there? It's right beside the RAM, top slot. That's where you're gonna plug in your CPU fan. It's literally right where my thumb is. You'll see if you read it, it'll say CPU fan is top one, CPU fan optional is one down. So up to you. All I did is I put it in through there, and then I have a trough that's near the top. So I hid all my wiring way up there, so that way I can zap strap this later and clean it all up. At this point, CPU is in. Fans are good, and my Corsairs are only upside down because I wanted the wires to come out through here so I can zap strap it all nice and stuff. If I would have moved it, then the wires would have been coming down a little bit differently, and to me it doesn't matter. To you, it might be a game changer. You're like, nope, no, they got to change around. So I'll leave that up to you. So if you're using one stick of RAM, put it in the farthest port, which is the closest one to your fan over there. If you're using 2 sticks like I am, you're going to be using this port and this port. So if you're only installing 1 stick, use that port. If you're installing 2 sticks, use these 2 ports. If you're installing 4, well, that's easy. If you're looking inside your case, you'll see these little levers right here. Pop them up before. So these 2 will be up. So that way, what you'll do is when you're sliding this down in these channels, it'll click in. Note the notch. You'll notice that one side is shorter than the other. So when you put your RAM in, it will only fit one way. So just make sure that notch lines up and plunk it in. After it plunks in, this side will click in and it'll go like, you'll actually hear it, it'll go click and you're done. And just make sure it's seated nicely in there.
So like I had said, all you do is you stretch these back and get the pins so they sit in. Your hard drive should sit like this after the pins are in, and if you want to, you can put the screws in, but it's literally just pulling back on this and then putting it in. Once they sit in here, they sit tight. I already sat mine in here. Then you just slide them into the compartment. Now what you can do is, like I said, you can either use these for this or you can put them in as solid state drives. So for solid state drives, you have two things you can do. If you're gonna do more than one, you can actually mount them like this. They have mounting holes like that. You can go ahead and mount one here and mount one here. Then you have two. My problem is I don't like that. Why? Because this fan's gonna be blowing heat right into it. So what do I suggest you do? Get rid of the plate, screw it. If you have some Velcro or double-sided sticky tape, literally, if you have two of these plates, go ahead and use them. But what I usually tell people to do, if you want to, you can mount it any way, by the way. You can put it either way you want, but just mount it like this, and I'll tell you why in a second. If you mount it like this, one, when you put your Sata cables on, then the right angle adapter will go right down into the case, hiding your wire. Two, your other hard drives are right here so you can click them in. Three, if you have it like this, this will act like a giant heat sink, so if these do get warm, this will end up eating it. If you take a look at this connector, this is Sata power, and if you look, you'll see mini Sata, or well, Sata cable, and Sata power. So go ahead and go along. If you have a modular power supply, you can always do strands before you even put the power supply in, which is what I'm gonna do right now. And I'm just gonna put this one on here. Be very careful. You don't wanna bend pins as you're sliding these on. It's very easy to catch the edge of a pin and then bend it. So just be careful when you're doing this. And again, when you're doing SATAs, just plug in your new Sata cables. I recommend using the new ones that come with your motherboard. If you have older Sata cables, they might not do the speeds you're looking for, so make sure that you use your 6 GB plus cables. And the other thing I'll tell you to do is, if you are purchasing, go with an M.2. The only reason why I haven't is I have so much storage as it is. I haven't bothered, but I will do M.2 in the future. And you want to start cleaning up stuff, one thing you can do is you can start plugging them in. It's labeled on them. Sata is pretty easy. Just plug into the Sata. And then if you have one that's for, of course, PCIe, it'll say PCIe on it, plug it in. There's one for CPU if you're using a bigger CPU plug, all that fun stuff. Just make sure that you've got the right plugs. And if you want, you can leave this out so you can kind of bring all your wiring in. See, mine's semi-modular, meaning that some of it is there. If you can get a full modular one, just do it. That would be my recommendation to you. And like I said originally, just make sure that fan is facing down and into this filtered area down here. First two I like to plug in usually is the motherboard. So this one, and do not forget your CPU one, which is up here. It's the one with 8 pins on it. I usually tuck it in through the top corner because there's usually an opening up in that top corner. You bring it around, plug it in, keeps your wiring nice and clean. This one is your heaviest connector of them all. Just bring it out here a little bit. Make sure you're not putting too much stress on this plug. So I usually leave a little bit out. Some people like to rip it all the way in, but the problem is if you put too much tension on this, you just don't want to break that off your motherboard. Then your motherboard's garbage. So just make sure you leave this so it's got some slack on it and clean it up the best you can. And after you get power to this, you can start, like I already started putting power to my drives. At that point, I'm gonna actually plug in my SATAs and I'm gonna start to do my case power. If you notice, I'm leaving the graphics card till the very end. The graphics card is so big that once you get it in here, trying to maneuver around it can be just crazy. So if you have a case with 3.0s, let's see here. We have our switches here. There it is. That would be that dual cable right here. See how it looks like this? Notice that there's one dead pin in here, like blanked out. So you can either plug that in right there, or there's one port right here. I like to do it off this one because then you bring it in right here and it plugs in right into this spot here. Plug it in there, and then all our SATAs will be here and we can clean it up nicely. Notice with the HD audio port, it's got one dead pin right there. If you look right there,
HD audio right there, which is right here beside all these caps. That will be the dead one right there. So that is our HD audio. Go ahead and just slide it in. Like I said, just be careful when you're sliding them in. Don't bend any pins. The next thing we're gonna be doing is following this diagram. So if you look here, you're gonna see that pin layout right there for right here. As you can see, you get stuff with your case. You have a hard drive LED. So as we can see here, bottom left-hand corner, you would plug that in, and it even tells you plus minus. And this should tell you plus minus, which it does. If it doesn't, then it doesn't matter. If you go to the next one, reset switch, it'll say on the board, but it will also say in your booklet. If you're coming in here to do them, the bottom row, you'll see first off that there is one contact that does not have a pin. That one right there is the end of your case stuff. Put it that way. Let's make sense of it. Look here. See how there's one pin right here? Just ignore all of this for right now. The no connection. Just go like this. See those 8 right there? So it goes hard drive plus negative. Make sure the plus is to the outside. Once you do that, right beside that is your reset button. The reset button, make sure it faces the same way, but it doesn't really matter. It's just, it grounds for a second to tell the PC to restart. So that button, it doesn't matter which way. Now your power LED plus and minus, if they're separated, which they usually are, they're just little, they're singular connectors. Plug the plus into plus, which is right above hard drive plus, and then hard drive negative, power LED will be negative right above that one too. And then again, power button, it'll tell you, all you do really is just plug it in and you're fine. Other than that, if you're plugging in one of those speakers so it beeps at you if something's going wrong, you can do that. And then there's of course an intruder. So you can put an intruder if someone's trying to break into your case. But that explains it. It looks kind of crazy when you're looking and putting these wires in, but it's super simple. So from this point, I'm gonna clean up a bit of this wiring and then see if I'm gonna put these solid states up here or not. So drives are in. All I did is I literally took this I have tons of Velcro around the house. So you could even zap strap these if you wanted to, because there's enough air vents here to zap strap. But all I did is I cut little, like a little square, and I put it underneath and collect it down on both sides. I got a little bit of residue right here from the last time. Clean that up so it's all black in here. There we go. Keep it all nice and shiny and all black. So from this point, I've got my SSDs all plugged in on this side. Make sure there's no torsion on these plugs. The last thing you want to do is break them off your SSD or bend a pin. Once they're in, before you start zap strapping, I'm starting to look and I'm like, okay, it's getting good. I've been monitoring my wiring and planning out channels as I go. Next thing that I'm gonna probably end up doing is plugging in all the drives.
So once we've confirmed we've got our RAM in, our processor, our cooler, everything's in, we've plugged everything in, all our connections are nice and plugged in, and they're exactly how we want them. Power to the CPU up there is plugged in. The big connector is all plugged in, and we have our hard drives plugged in the way we want them. Everything is the way that we would like them. Now it is time to go and grab our graphics card. Looks pretty dope. I'm gonna unpackage it here, and after I unpackage it, just make sure that this is open like so. So when you slide it down, it'll click and lock it in. Now, last thing, if you're putting in an M.2, there is 2 spots. There's one here and there's one here. Before you put your graphics card in, I suggest you unbolt these 3 screws, take the plate out, put your M.2 in under this plate. You'll see that it gets screwed in right about here. When you're putting this on, make sure you, there's a peel stick. So peel it and then stick the this metal cover on. It helps keep your M.2 cold. I'm not using an M.2 like I said right now, but if you are using one, this is where you should put it. The other thing is you'll notice that there's, before you put your graphics card on, peel that off. You won't have a chance later. Underneath here though, there's another one that's got this, it's like a coolant compound, so when you put it on, it's going to keep your M.2 cold. Just make sure you pull that. Lee, what a behemoth. That's insane. So all I did is I put it down there, I put the one screw in. I always screw it in, even if you have quick disconnects, I prefer to screw in a heavy graphics card like that. Screwed in, properly sunk down on the board. You can tell that if you come on this side. Just make sure the hook clicked, which you would have felt. Make sure it's all along there. Make sure that if there's any remove before playing kind of stuff, like sometimes they'll put a big sticker across the fans and stuff, which mine did have. I pulled that off already. There's the SLI stuff here. Who knows if you're going to be using two of these. Again, this is the MSI GeForce GTX 1080 Ti, and I'm really excited to play with this card. So now that we've got this, we're ready for powers. I'm going to flip this case back up now that this is in there solidly, and going to run the two powers to the card, and then we can start zap strapping. If you take a look here, make sure you plug in your USB cable, bring it around. I tucked it in there, brought it out right by my hard drives here, and plugged it into the USB 2.0 slot, just like you're supposed to right there. I left that one exposed just in case I buy something else that needs USB 2.0 power. Let's quickly go over everything. So, graphics card, plugged in, check. Memory, plugged in. Everything in here is all done. Just go over your motherboard, just check all the steps, make sure it's done. So this is my example of what I usually do for when I'm doing cases. As you can see, I rounded up this trough like so, and then it gets, maybe I'll do one more zap strap here, but it really doesn't need it. This wire is so rigid, it will hold into that corner. One zap strap here to keep all this nice and tight and around the corner. This one, I will probably put one zap strap over here for, just to hold it a little bit, but that's that big pin right there, big connector. I really don't want to put much pressure on that. This is sitting in here. I've tucked my extra wiring in here, and there it is, all zap strapped up. I put one fan there, didn't bother with the one here. It was gonna cover the radiator a little bit, and I do not want it messing around with the radiator at all of the cooler. So as you can see, all tightened up. If you want to, I might throw one more right here, but other than that, that's it. I'm gonna start sliding my panels back on, and then it's time to go test out the rig. I'm also gonna press the front cover back on here, so that way that shroud's on there. If I notice that there's some temperature stuff, I might even just take it off. It doesn't look too bad, but I'll probably clean out this spot if I do. After you've got it all done like this, it's time to go plug it in. First thing you're gonna wanna do, of course, is with a lot of the newer cases, they don't come with the slot for optic drives like this one didn't. So if you're gonna wanna have a CD player or something to put it in, I would suggest that you maybe try and find a case. Could be fun. Other than that, a lot of the times you can just get all the software and the drivers online anyway, so that's all I'm going to do. And also, when you go and purchase, if you buy a system build version of Windows 10, I will suggest that you pick up the version with the USB key. You can also, if you want to, just download it from online before you rebuild your system and make your own USB key, and then you just buy your key from Microsoft. Other than that, I'm gonna go plug this in, start it up, and if you don't hear anything else from me, that means it worked great. I'm looking forward to start doing some more video rendering again, so that way I can catch up on a bunch of my YouTube videos, including this one. All right, press like if you liked it and subscribe for more.